There's an esoteric saying which is, as above, so below. We're going to speculate about what is above, which is the sky, and below, which is our earth. As we have entered a new age in the 21st century, and with new amazing discoveries in the universe, there is indeed an interesting fact about as above, so below. I'm Agneta Borstein, I'm an astrologer, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this program, From the Sky to Earth. Today we're going to talk about Neptune coming back home. We're going to speculate and see a little bit about the fact about how the myth is. We start with the myth. Neptune was discovered 1846, and in that process he is in one sign for 14 years, sometimes 15. So he's the god of the ocean. He rules the ocean. And he does not only rules it, he is the ocean. And with his trident, he controls the storms, and he tries to calm the waters down at times. Neptune travels, as all the planet does, around the ecliptic. It takes about 165 years for one, now as we talk about Neptune, to travel around the ecliptic. Neptune stays around 14, 15 years in one zodiac sign. And in April of 2011, he came back home. And he's going to stay there to 2026, which is what we can talk about later. So when he was discovered, there was a lot of new energies in the waters. So a myth about, and the image about Neptune in Pisces, very powerful. As we know, Earth consists about 2/3 of water. And there's a lot of water. Neptune is a water sign. So basically, we have the zodiac ABC of astrology, and Pisces is this sign that Neptune belongs to. That's where he feels at home. That's where he belongs to. So the symbol of Pisces is interesting, with two fish, one swimming up, be very careful, and the other one swimming down, which really don't care. There's the two side faces of Pisces. So when we look at Pisces itself, it's quite compassionate, it's very loving. It's often we find caretaker and nurses when we come to looking at Pisces itself. It might be the psychic in people. It is that side of Neptune going the other way, and so it's addictive. It's oversensitive, and sometimes get so lazy and they daydream because they kind of like to escape on that two side of the Pisces image. Now, Neptune itself nowadays has a lot in it, as in to speculate why, since 2011, and Neptune is right around 8-9 degrees now, as all planets are 30 degrees. So there's a lot about Neptune in Pisces that comes out as the dreams and actor and actresses, of course. And again, it's the drugs and alcohol, which we know there is always on the radar for that kind of illegal or legal addiction. An interesting aspect is rules chemicals. So we have chemical spills, as it also rules oil. So we have this impact nowadays, as we don't go into the political side, but there is that awareness of oil prices as Neptune comes in and out in orbs, depending on what other planets it affects. It does rule film and movies, and we have that as, of course, the acting, and we see a lot of changes now in 2015 or just last few years about how we stream the movies in our own living rooms. So imagination. Medicine is going to be very important, has been the last few years, and we are rapidly seeing new discoveries just in general, even curing of cancer even, that we have seen, as the nurses also are involved. And as we know, Neptune rules the oceans and streams. We hope they are still clean. It rules photography, and photography is a very artistic side nowadays of how that has become digital. That's changing very fast, and now you can instantly have a picture taken and it's gone. Personally, I like to hold on to them. It rules shamanism because it's the subconscious. In Neptune is the dream state, and the shamanism, or in general, alternative healing might be including in the sign of Neptune. And it does rule spirituality, and also psychics, because that we could have mentioned earlier, and also the increase of yoga and meditation. We're not so strange anymore if we do some yoga. There's hatha yoga in every corner, or in new ways of looking at a new form of exercise, and because it's calming. We're going to take a look at why it's interesting to look at this chart of Uncle Tom's Cabin. For those who haven't visited the Museum of Harriet Beecher Stowe, please do so, because in 1852, and if we ask if we can get a close-up, yes, there it is. Beautiful. March 20th, 1852, Uncle Tom's Cabin started to be known throughout the world, not just in America. But again, there is a museum across from Mark Twain. They were neighbors, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and they actually got along quite well. In this picture that we see a chart, don't be scared of the chart, we see Neptune traveling around 8 degrees, or 9 degrees, it's better there, 9 degrees. And that will show at the point now, as we speak, Neptune is around 8 degrees, and we see a shift in subconscious, is that water is churning, if you will, that there's a shift. But also in another episode of From the Sky to Earth, we were talking about Uranus-Pluto as Uranus being revolutionary, and we see that up on the screen as here, Uranus and Pluto, very close together, and they are close together again as in the 2012 throughout 2015. So there is that mass conscious of change, being aware of slavery, abolishment movement were established, and also if somebody's known about the Theosophical Society, there was a lot of interest in mediums. Mark Twain and Harriet Beecher Stowe would travel either to New York or Boston, and as we know, if you have visited their house, there is still little things going on in the spirit world. So that would also be because we do know in that time, as Harriet Beecher Stowe had the opportunity to meet Lincoln, President Lincoln, 6'4", and her almost didn't reach up to 5 feet, and he claimed, oh, so you are the little lady that started this war. They don't know for sure if that's a fact, but we know for a fact that the Civil War was right there, 1861 through 1865. And so now when we take a look at the next chart, we will see the last square, as it's called, square is in a tension between Uranus and Pluto. We had talked about that in another episode, as I mentioned. But Neptune is also in Pisces. So as of 2011, there is a new awareness of not just the way we are living or cleaning up the waters, whether we are for or against climate change. There is an awareness of the water raising, and there might be more. In the awareness itself is a consciousness that raises up for the benefit of humanity. And so we take this sky-earth connection, and we look at charts. There's much more to it, but we will save that for another time, because we're going to continue looking at Neptune. Just in general, when Neptune goes through an interesting part of perhaps how it stays in one sign for 15 years, 14 or 15, I thought we should just look at a little bit about this fact of what happens during a shift in consciousness, because Neptune represents that very much. So when we start in the 21st century, when Neptune was in Cancer, I have to use my little cheat sheet, because there's a lot going on. In that time, immigration and emigration was very strong. Cancer, Neptune likes to be in Cancer. It's a water sign, so it's exalted. It likes to be home. The next phase was when Neptune were in Leo, 1914 through 1928. We know by history that was a World War I. And also the whole German power in Europe started to be noticeable. when Neptune moved into Virgo, 1928-42, there is the infrastructure, but also the Great Depression. And that is, in parentheses, this Great Recession that we recently experienced. I don't know what's so great about it, because that's another form of this Uranus-Pluto that you can look into at another segment under Nutmeg Television. But we also had a nice discovery. The first TV came around at that time. So there's new discovery no matter where we look at. At next time, when Neptune was in Libra, 1942 to 56, there's another war, World War II, and everybody wishes for peace. Libra is a peacemaker, but it just doesn't happen to be that way all the time. Now, when Neptune went into Scorpio, 56 to 1970, there may be some that remember the 60s. And there was all kinds of, it was in Scorpio at that time, and of course that's a sexual revolution. There's a revolution on all kinds of avenues, including, of course, protest against the Vietnam War, which was a long war, but it was in that process that it started. But also, it was when the internet started. So we have this back to the 60s and the 56 and the 70s. There was, of course, music start, that kind of escaping into music revolution, the Beatles and all that good. I was a rock and roller with Rolling Stones, but I liked the Beatles. So then when we have 1970 to 1984 in Sagittarius, more education started to rebuild, perhaps a stronger economy. I think there was the man of the moon, or was just in general, there was a lot of different aspects to those times. When Pisces were in Capricorn, 1984 to 1998, it was more an industrial revolution, or awareness rather. United Europe was established, and also I was involved with something in 1987. It was called harmonic conversion. It was my pleasure to gather a group in Elizabeth Park in Hartford, and over 200 people showed. So there's a shift every time Neptune makes its presence known. And people were meditating, and there was all kinds of good things happened. Millions of people around the world participated. And now we go into 1998, 2011, and we have Aquarius, Neptune in Aquarius. So that's more a mass awareness of individuality, as Aquarius likes to be known for. So there's breaking down of borders, unfortunately Iraq and Bosnia, and it does not have to be war because Neptune changed signs. There's other planets involved with that. And so now when Neptune is in Pisces in his way home, 2011 to 2026, and as I mentioned is past about 8 to 9 degrees. And there could be a confusion at times. And also we find that an awareness started about recreation, again drugs, because in 1852 there was so much use of opium that you could just go to every corner that the government had to stop it. And also at that time there was alternative medicine started to become very factual and known. So we can kind of go further out to the future and see what happens when Neptune is in Aries 2026 through 2039. There is a new vision about self versus others. Is it going to be an awareness how some people have no water, clean water? There are organizations, not to mention how many there are, that we should just be able to be so thankful that in this country that we have water. Or is it clean? Is it a drought in California? So we have this water element of being aware of what's going on. But that's now, so we hope by 2026 and 2039 that has been taken care of. What I do see when Neptune goes into Taurus, there is a whole new earth awareness. The organic, the way of people gathering foods and all the different survival instinct will change. When I visualize Neptune in Gemini, I get kind of like a chuckle. They have talked about having your ID in your hand or wherever you want to put it. I definitely feel we're just going to have the phones up, in our ears, and visionary of the minds and the phones, and the whole communication will be very, very different. And just as a speculation about when you see a chart, you might be a little scared, but here is an image about how Neptune is going to be, for you to know that if you have the sun in Neptune, you might know your moon in Neptune, you might have an ascendant or other planets, then this year of 2015 are more prominent than it was before, because Jupiter, our largest planet, will influence, an opposition will occur, opposite attracts, and that Jupiter will move into Virgo in August of 2015, and it will kind of start to irritate or be opposing if you have some either Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, or Sagittarius. You might be influenced about this change. And of course, Saturn in Sagittarius, Saturn is a planet that not many people like, but I tend to like it because it makes us disciplined and is earthbound and gets us result. And we still have that Pluto in Capricorn as well, squaring Uranus, but they are separating now. But tonight we focus on Neptune in Pisces. If you have just joined me, then this program is about astrology from the sky to earth. And we're taking a look at Neptune and his water element. So we're going to take another look, just because we're going to take another look at a chart. Don't be scared. This is the vernal equinox. That was March 20th in 2015. Sometimes it's interesting, you don't have to know the symbols of astrology, but you see an image. There's a lot of planets in one sector called a stellium, and we had on March 20th, we both have the vernal equinox and we had an eclipse. So it was very strong energy, and sometimes we say that the vernal or the spring equinox, as well as the solstice, set like a stage, like a present about the next few months ahead. And we see here, that's all the areas. There's the sun, moon in Aries. The nodes, which will be part of another segment from the sky to earth, that explains that there is an eclipse going on. Uranus is in Aries, and at the time we had Mars too in Aries. And for you who were tired of the winter, we also know the spring has to come, but it's going to be a long time before we really feel that the spring is going to be long winter, because it's a movement of, it's different. The planetary energy sometimes happens to affect as above, so below. And we have this image of maybe some of the Aries people out there feel this. And also we see Neptune in Pisces being at least 8 degrees, almost 9 degrees, and it will stay so throughout. And so when we then take a look at this beautiful planet that we have created, we're looking at Farmington River. I take rights there, and I'm trying to find myself, appreciate the water as we have it in our bodies. As we know, there is 2/3 of the water on the globe, and our bodies are born 90% water, and as we grow older, it becomes more dense. And we also try to find that the water elements are emotions, and emotions are quite good to express through those different avenues that we talked about, that that Pisces represents. And if there would be a time that this is a good time, that we see an awareness with Neptune in Pisces, because it stays there to 2026, and just awareness in the subconscious about awareness of movements of cleaning the water, or try to. But in your own individual chart, there is also eclipses would happen. There is transit that affects both Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and of course, Gemini, Sagittarius, but also all the different elements, air, earth, fire, and water, are in a shift right now. But we do find the water being the most important part of, paying attention to. We will say we can look at the planets and we can be in awe how many different different avenues we can look at the sky and allow that to come forth in our daily lives. And if we take astrology into the different cycles that we were talking about, when we now have Pisces in 2011, a lot of shifts happen around 2012, but we're not going to say that that was doomsday with economy and all these different visions that we have and hope for the future. And that would be part of having the confusion. There is that two sides of the Pisces. Remember the symbol of Pisces? One is swimming up the stream and one is swimming down the stream. And that's, part of Pisces energy that most of the time is for humanitarians aspect. So it's not just about confusion. For example, the Higgs boson, Higgson, and then Boson. I was fascinating about that because we're finding the new discovery of hope. We're not going to go out of space, but we're going to find a lot of ways of this CERN, Switzerland discovery of what we actually can do in a changing society, and trust the sky is always watching over us. And as long as we take care of Mother Earth, especially as we talk about the water today, then Pisces from 2011 to 2026 seems like a far, but it goes very fast. Supposedly, some of you might have heard about this new age. It's here, but the culmination is 2020 to 2025. There is the other planet Pluto and Uranus that also stays until 2026, actually. So the whole shift is going on as we speak. And it's my pleasure to share these astrological but also astronomical quotations, thoughts that are coming our way to be having the faith and this, the whole dissolving of matters is also that things has to change in a changing society, whether they are spiritual aspects or confusing aspects. Then it's also to pay attention to Hatha Yoga, be sure that we meditate, but also to stay practical in our changing world and make sure we take a standing to make sure that the positive way, should you be affected by Neptune, Pisces, if you have the sun, moon, ascendant, or so forth. And so it's my pleasure to have shared with you during this program about Neptune coming all the way back home, because it stays a long time from the 1862 to come back home and feel comfortable again. It has taught us a lot, and it's my pleasure to have been able to be part of Nutmeg Television for sharing our views, our sometimes controversial views and opinions. But it's my pleasure. I'm Agneta Borstein. I'm an astrologer, and you can reach me at the screen. I hope so. And we hope to see you back for another segment, From the Sky to Earth. Thank you.